Welcome to A Mugful of Marketing, your regular dose of brews and views from across the world of marketing. I'm Barnaby, ND of 199, and this is...
I'm James, Director of Digital and co-founder at 199.
And in this episode, we're going to be looking at the death of Vice and the importance of owning your audience. So, former media darling and voice of the youth, Vice, is closing down its website and laying off hundreds of people. So we're going to talk about what that means from a marketing perspective, the lessons that we can learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sad news. There's certainly an element of nostalgia there for me, having kind of grown up on Vice myself. I'm sure it's the same for you. It's quite eye-opening. It covered a lot of things that I wasn't aware of in the BBC didn't cover and the mainstream press. And we've watched the kind of arc of it as a platform evolve over the years, and also potentially we've seen the writing on the wall for a while as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy now to kind of dismiss it, but it did produce some really good content. Yeah, the documentaries, the great articles, the kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff, the sort of the true reflection of the youth subculture that wasn't being reflected in the mainstream. I mean, it did become a parody of itself. I can't help but think of that one meme video from about 5-6 years ago where the guy in the editorial department struggling to come up with a story, and he's got his hands on, he's throwing the suction dildo at the wall with like poor country, marginalized people and drug. And that, it just, as you said, like... It
was an eye roll moment, wasn't it? But towards the end sometimes of a lot of the stories that came out, and it really did kind of feel like it wasn't sure what it was doing anymore.
No, well, you said not sure what it was doing as well, because on the other side it was launching Vice TV and all of these other different things in music and kind of watering itself down. It become the mainstream, but I mean, whilst all these contributed, I don't think any of them are the main reason why it failed.
No, and I think the reason we want to talk about this on this episode is there's lessons to be learned. I think it's something worth highlighting because it's a broader problem maybe that it points to as well.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think Vice failed because it never found a business model. It was completely over-reliant on third-party platforms, social media platforms and other media for its revenue.
And its content was free.
Yeah, and its content was free.
Yeah.
And, that was fine in the halcyon days of Facebook building organic
reach.
But when you're in an ever more competitive market, competing for a growing but not growing as fast as the number of competitors in that marketplace, and you're producing really expensive content, getting paid less and less for every click and view, it's a problem. You need constant expansion.
It is. I guess you also, when you are relying on that, the views and the cost per click model, it's going to impact naturally on the actual stories that you're putting out as well. And that's something that's a broader problem. So this isn't just unique to Vice, though, is it? It's something that I've heard you kind of talk about quite a few times in the office. It's what would you say it points to with regard to kind of like the mainstream press as well?
Well, I think the UK newspaper press is probably a great example of it. I mean, working in PR when I started, you wanted... Print was still a big thing. You wanted to be in all of these mainstream publications, and you still do, but they have broadly not transitioned to digital that well. And really, like, there's a good case study because some of them are doing it much better than others. You look at the Guardian versus the Telegraph. So they're both political broadsheets on different sides of the aisle, but they're editorial-led political broadsheets. The Guardian's got a much bigger audience. It's got sort of 20 million to the Telegraph's 13 million. And yet the Guardian looks to be on track to lose about 39 million this year. 39 million quid, whereas the Telegraph made that last year.
Not enough people hitting that donate button.
No, exactly. The difference is that the Telegraph owns its audience. You want to read more than a few cursory paragraphs, you're going to pay.
Yeah. That does seem to be a model that more media outlets are going down as well. You've got like The Athletic that was launched a few years ago on the sports side that, well, you know, they're charging for it and seemingly people are prepared to pay.
Yeah, well, you need a lot fewer of them, don't you?
That's it. So I suppose the lessons from this that we can take as marketers, and you know, you mentioned how it's about owning data. I suppose that is the thing that sticks out from this a little bit that we could kind of get into a little bit. It's been a pitfall that a lot of people have fallen into over the years. Platform gets popular, organic reach is, you know, it's the good old days. It's, you can build businesses off the back of it, and then the game changes, and all of a sudden you don't have access to your audience anymore, or you certainly don't have free access to it, and you also don't make the rules as to how much it costs to reach them.
Yeah, I mean, the more you own your audience, the better it is financially, I guess, is how you would break it down.
So when we say own your audience, what does that look like?
I mean, it depends on the industry, but essentially things like newsletters. Do you have an e-marketing list? One that you control, an opt-in e-marketing list? You know, are you creating a newsletter? Do you have in music, you know, a fan club or a dedicated website that people have to...
Well, yeah, 'cause websites aren't something that everyone's had either. You know, that was part of this whole trend of Facebook pages were what everyone was told they needed. Took a while to convince people that was the case. They got on there and they decided it wasn't worth having their own domains, wasn't worth having their newsletters. All of those things got pushed further and further down the priority list, didn't they?
Yeah, and then when the game changes, they come running back.
But things like e-marketing, it works. It's a core part of a lot of the stuff that we do for some of our clients.
Yeah.
You know, like for instance, Annie Mack, who we work with, she has multiple parts of her brand and business. She runs an events brand called Before Midnight. She's an author, so we need to sell books and do campaigns all around that. So two very different kind of types of subscriber. But we found success with it. It really is a pillar of the strategies that we use.
That's how you monetize the stuff that she's putting out there, really.
But the difference is value, and it's a word that gets thrown around quite cheaply. And I do believe that a lot of people kind of initially set up a newsletter with the best intentions of making it a special place, but after the first month or two, when they've not grown as much as they originally thought they would, the priorities go out the window, and the exclusive content then just gets put out as an Instagram reel or something.
Yeah, they move away from it. They don't provide value. You know, the amount of news pages and newsletters where you say, sign up for free this and insights on that, and then it very quickly becomes
They're empty promises, aren't they?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, and I think people are wise to that as well. So what can you do then as a creator? I think it's about that kind of what value you can add, and actually have a dedicated strategy for things, for audiences you own, you know, wherever that is.
Yeah, it works the same on the business side. You know, the kind of the old e-blast, just send out something to everyone, whether they've opted in or not. I've never been a fan.
Also summary culture, you know, where you're just summarising everything you've already said. Like, that isn't special. It's good for lazy people, but it's not unique, and it's not cultivating a special space that people actually want to feel attached to.
It's not offering anything new. It's a newsletter. No. It's not offering that. It's not offering the value that gets people to read it. So very quickly your open rate's probably going to fall off a cliff.
It's not even. It's not two-way either. I mean, some of my favourite newsletters actually are interactive.
Yeah,
you know, people reply to them. There's a whole inbox where someone will go through replies to things. They'll do like Q&As, or they'll answer
they do content
questions
on the back of the response. It becomes
interactive. You know, it operates off the same principles that we talk about a lot with social media. You know, two-way dialogue, being at the heart of everything. So, yeah, it's easy to look at some of the areas like e-marketing as just publishing.
Yeah, and it's not publishing. I mean, even on the business-to-business side, you know, you want to be having those tailored sort of marketing automation campaigns where if someone opens this particular link, or they open that particular story, then maybe send them more content on that, and, you know, creating the
map out a journey.
Yeah, mapping out a journey and pushing them through the pipeline a bit.
So yeah, key lessons then that we can take away from the Vice situation.
I think if it's on a third-party platform, you don't own it. I guess is the big one.
So
you can't control it, and you're at the whims of the platform.
And to assess how vulnerable you are at that, you just need to think: if this went away tomorrow, do I still have a functioning business?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people for whom they really wouldn't.
Yeah. Think about the bigger picture of your kind of digital portfolio. You need to be using these platforms because they're huge for building a brand, and that is really, really important. But don't rely on just one area of that. Your digital portfolio includes data that you own.
Yeah. I mean, when we were kind of talking about this before we came on air, you mentioned, that the third-party platforms are introducing these kind of the sort of subscription services.
Exactly. Like I know in Instagram, they've tried ripping off Patreon, haven't they, with their paid
as well.
Paid content, essentially. Just an area for super fans to pay you money and give them kind of exclusive content, but it still feels a bit half-baked to me.
You're still not in control. You're still ultimately, you think about you could still be taken off that platform and things could change very quickly. I guess there's also a lesson in the Vice situation about the dangers of sort of falling on your sword in a bid to make the kind of content that you think your audience should want, rather than the kind of content that they're actively engaging with.
Yeah, running towards the smoke when there's a fire, when all of the rest of the industry is kind of repositioning themselves. That's not to say you should blindly follow trends, but at the same time, there's sometimes a reason why industries evolve.
Yeah, and you look in the media landscape now, the subscription-based content seems to be the one that's making the profit. Yeah. Oh well, R.I.P. Vice. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
great. Thanks for joining us on A Mugful of Marketing. Join us next time for more brews and views from across the world of marketing.
Remember to subscribe and leave a nice comment if you so desire.
Cheers. Bye.